Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If you enjoy, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the like button. As well as that, leave a comment down below and you'll be entered in our monthly shoutout giveaway. Today we'll be going over the top 10 biggest scams found on the TV show Pawn Stars. When Bob, a seller from Season 3, walks through the doors of Gold and Silver Pawn with a copy of a 450-year-old book on alchemy that he believes is from Isaac Newton's library, he is known to have something special in his hands. Of course, the old man calls in an expert on rare books, who informs everyone that this is indeed a book from the famous thinker's collection, although the cover had been restored and rebacked, probably done in around the 1700s. Shockingly enough, Bob accepts the old man's offer at a very low $7,000. It is unclear why he accepted the $7,000 offer, even though the book was valued at $20,000.
The 1652 copy of Elias Ashmole's Theatrum Chemicum Britannicum. In it is the secret to...
If you were actually able to come up with a formula for making gold, all the gold in their treasuries would be worthless. So there's also books on alchemy that
The 1652 copy of Elias Ashmole's Theatrum Chemicum Britannicum. I bought the book several years ago.
In the Season 4 episode Peacemaker, Rick excitedly buys an 1890s Colt 45 revolver. Rick's excitement is playable, especially after the seller, Brian, foolishly reveals that he purchased it for $25. They eventually agree on the price of $3,000. Upon inspection of the revolver, weapons expert Sean tells Rick that the gun is worth at least $5,000 in its current condition. But in fact, depending on how exactly rare the specific model is, it could be worth much more. Granted, the gun featured on Pawn Stars was probably from a much later production line. The current price on similar models ranged from around $2,000 all the way up to $42,000. Field artillery collector Chuck rolled in his 1890 Hotchkiss cannon into the parking lot of Gold and Silver Pawn, aiming to land a deal. Things were looking up when Rick asked his weapons expert, "What can I pay for it and still make a few bucks?" To which he replied, "I would say $40,000 all day." Of course, Chuck is pleased, but then he immediately commits the fatal flaw of any negotiation, which is to reveal his bottom line number before haggling even begins. "I expected about $30,000, Chuck says, instantly alleviating himself of a potential $10,000. Rick seizes on Chuck's misstep and agrees to $30,000 as long as the cannon still fires. It does, and they shake on the deal. Obviously, you can say, well, that's the seller's fault for undercutting himself, but clearly Rick knew what he was doing and expertly capitalized on the seller's low expectation. In a very early episode of Pawn Stars, Corley takes a supposedly huge gamble on buying a 1984 Chris Craft boat for $16,000 before having an expert look it over. As seen on most of the episodes, Rick and the old man hem and haw at how much Corey spent on the purchase and making it such a risky purchase. However, it is later revealed that the boat had an approximate retail value of $30,000. In another Season 1 episode, Rick and the old man make a steal of a deal in a restored 1962 Lincoln Continental. The seller, Devin, says he did most of the engine work himself, but he's put enough money and time into the car and he's ready to let it go. He says he wants to get $13,000 to $14,000 for the car, but the classic beauty has a seriously neglected interior, so Devin eventually parts ways with it for just $9,000. They note that the original showroom price for the vehicle was $10,000, meaning they actually paid less for the car in 2009 than it cost new in 1962, not usually the case with classic cars in relatively decent shape. One is probably the most egregious example of the guys knowingly underpaying for an item. Corey slashed through a negotiation on a 15th century samurai sword that could potentially net the shop over $10,000. The seller, David, claimed to be a lawyer who kept the sword after a client used it as a collateral, then failed to return to claim it. Just before the haggling started, Corey admitted via backroom confessional that he'd seen a few of those sell for thousands of dollars, which is why his opening offer of $800 was laughably shady. The seller, woefully underprepared for the negotiation, said when he offered me $800, I wanted to jump and do a dance, but I had to keep my cool because the price was still going up. They agreed on $1,500, and an expert later determined that it was worth around $5,000 to $6,000 in its current condition.